as a hospital and as a prisoner of war camp. Eventually, the fort became an officer training camp and recruitment facility. During World War II, Fort McPherson became one of 19 nationwide Army personnel centers. As soldiers entered or left service, they passed through Fort McPherson. Between September of 1945 and February of 1946, an average of 20,000 soldiers were discharged monthly at Fort McPherson's Separation Center. After World War II, the Third Army was headquartered at the fort and remained there until the base closed in 2001. The Third Army was responsible for coordinating all ground forces involved in the Army's presence in Southwest Asia during the Gulf War. The fort was sold to Tyler Perry in 2015 and is now used as a movie studio in Atlanta. One of the most significant contributions Georgia had on military production was in the aircraft industry. Robins Air Force Base began as Warner Robins Air Service Command, which repaired Army Air Corps aircraft and trained mechanics. Hunter Army Airfield is part of the Fort Stewart Complex. The Army shares the 5,400-acre site with a unit of the United States Coast Guard. Hunter Army Airfield served as the Army Flight Training Center for helicopter pilots during the Vietnam War. The airfield now supports training of the Army's 175th Ranger Regiment, was chosen as an alternate landing site for certain space shuttle missions and a deployment and support base. Before and during the war in the Persian Gulf, Hunter Army Airfield provided aircraft and crew for troop transport overseas. The Bell Aircraft Corporation chose Marietta as a site to build planes. Marietta was an ideal location, as it was far enough away from the coast where attacks might happen, but close to Atlanta and its railroads. Between 1942 and 1945, the Bell Bomber Plant established itself as one of the main military industrial centers in the Southeast and was the largest ever built in the Deep South. Marietta Army Airfield was built in 1943. The name changed to the Dobbins Air Force Base in 1950 after World War II in honor of Captain Charles Dobbins. Currently, the Dobbins Air Force Base is the only U.S. military facility in North Georgia. Georgia provided many more military installations. During World War II, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport began as Atlanta Army Airfield. Presently, the Ranger Training Camp near Dahlonega still trains soldiers to become Rangers, and Kings Bay remains as a base for the Navy's submarines. Thank you.
Thank you, students. Please welcome chorus, Performing to Those Who Serve by Jill Galena. Today's feature presentation focuses on the life and events of Jesse Brown, an African-American Navy pilot that was shot down during the Korean War. To guide you on this journey, we have Amarita Kanama and Rohan Pandya.
Rohan, I have some beef with Dr. Grzecki. When he gave us his story to read and learn about, he forgot to mention one important thing. The story is just heartbreaking.
Tell me about it. And it's based on a real story.
Wait, hold on. The audience doesn't know what we're talking about. How rude of us.
This is the inspirational story of the Navy's most famous aviator duo, Lieutenant Tom Hudner and Ensign Jesse Brown, and the Marines they fought to defend.
A white New Englander from the country club scene, Tom passed up Harvard to fly fighters for his country. Meanwhile, Jesse, an African-American sharecropper's son from Mississippi, was the Navy's first black carrier pilot who fought to defend a nation that would not even serve him at a bar.
These two men showed a great amount of camaraderie for each other.
Wait, what's camaraderie?
Well, camaraderie can have two meanings. It is defined as mutual trust and friendship among people who spend a lot of time together.
Oh, okay.
However, in the movie The Four Feathers, there's a short speech. It goes like this.
For those who have journeyed far to fight in foreign lands, know that the soldier's greatest comfort is to have his friends close at hand. In the heat of a battle, it ceases to be an idea for which we fight, or a flag.
Rather, we fight for the man on our left, and we fight for the man on our right. And when armies are scattered and empires fall away, all that remains is the memory of those precious moments we spent side by side.
Wow. These two men were willing to die for each other, even though their type of friendship was far beyond its time.
The friends fought in the Korean War, also known as the Forgotten War. 5 million soldiers and civilians lost their lives in this conflict.
Jesse Brown and Tom Hudner became friends when they were both stationed aboard the USS Leyte in Korea. They created such a strong bond together.
During the Korean War, Brown and Hudner flew many missions. The duo's talents as pilots were specifically focused on providing close air support during a Marine withdrawal from the Chosin Reservoir, which is in present-day North Korea, in December of 1950.
Why? What happened there?
On November 25, 1950, the Chinese Communist Forces, or the CCF, unofficially joined the war, backing the North Koreans. Roughly 120,000 soldiers attacked the Marines' withdrawal column at the Chosin Reservoir. Navy aviators from the Leyte rushed in, guns blazing, to try to help the Marines escape.
Jesse wrote to his wife, knowing that he's helping those poor guys on the ground, I think every pilot on here would fly until he dropped in his tracks.
That excerpt really demonstrates Jesse's patriotism, bravery, and brotherhood.
On December 4th, 1950, right after one of these relief missions, Bill Coing, one of the aviators, noticed fuel leaking from Jesse's aircraft.
Jesse immediately realized that he was going down. However, he did not panic and calmly aimed for a flat area on a hill.
Unwilling to let Jesse die, Tom rushed down after his friend, despite knowing he would be court-martialed for it. There is no better example of brotherhood, white or black, than what happened that terrible afternoon at Somong-ni, said Brown's widow, Daisy Brown Thorne, in the 2008 documentary.
Tom crashed his own plane to attempt to save his comrade's life. However, when he reached Jesse's Corsair, he found the pilot's leg pinned inside. Tom tried repeatedly to free Jesse from the wreckage, but it was of no avail. A rescue helicopter, manned by Lieutenant Charles Ward, also made 2 attempts to try and pull Jesse out of the burning aircraft.
Finally, after an hour of struggling, Jesse breathed his last. His final words were, "Tell Daisy, I love her." This broke me. But do you know what really inspired me?
What?
The dignity and grace that Daisy, his wife, carried throughout such a grim time in her life. She went to Washington, D.C., where she attended and supported Tom Hudner as he received the prestigious Medal of Honor.
She held her head high no matter what was said to her, and she represented Jesse with elegance after his tragic death.
What I took from this story was Brown's and Hudner's bravery and willingness to sacrifice themselves for their comrades and their country.
I was really struck by the friendship between the two, how close they were, and their patriotism.
And even though today's presentation was about these two brave men, we would like to acknowledge all the great heroes that fought and survived and those who lost their lives in the war. Thank you for your service to this country.
Thank you, veterans, for all you have sacrificed for our nation.
Thank you, Amarita and Rohan. Next, please welcome the band and chorus performing Battle Hymn of the Republic. Enjoy. Thank you, band and chorus. Today's guest speaker is returning to us for her third time. She entered the U.S. Army in 1964 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in February of 1966. Our guest speaker worked and trained as hard as she could and was forced to overcome many difficult obstacles, which includes enduring the cruelty of the Vietnam War. She was promoted to captain in 1968 and was the head nurse in 3rd Field Hospital, Saigon, Vietnam. During this time, she was instrumental in the saving of a Vietnamese infant, an event that was highlighted in the documentary In the Shadow of the Blade and Kathleen's Story. Through her hard work and dedication, she earned the Vietnam Service Ribbon and the Army Commendation Medal. Since her honorable discharge in June of 1969, she has served her community in many national, state, and local organizations, including Habitat for Humanity, American Red Cross, Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, Atlanta Regional Commission, Fannie Mae Executive Board, Cobb County Development Authority, Director of Georgia Vietnam Veterans Alliance, President of the Cobb County Republican Women's Club, and was the first woman to be inducted into the Georgia Military Veteran Hall of Fame in November 2016, and is currently the president and CEO of the Cobb Veterans Memorial Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our distinct pleasure to welcome back Mrs. Donna Rowe.
Well, I'll tell you, this is quite the thing. You know, I travel all over the country. I have been in Texas, 5 different places in Texas. I've been in 7 different places in Ohio. I have been in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. I have been in Pennsylvania. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing that compares to E.T. Booth and your ceremony. So give yourself a hand. I'm really honored to be with you today. I can't believe you asked me back for the 3rd time, but I told Larry that I'd do the best I can, and I want to thank Larry, and I believe it was Brenda that finally got me on the phone and asked me to come. I'm thrilled to be here, but I'm mostly thrilled to see my fellow vets standing here in this room with me. This event is very meaningful to me and all of us that ever wore the uniform of the United States Armed Forces. It is not just about us. It's about those that died. It's about our families that sacrificed. But before I tell you about us, I want to read to you an induction citation from the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame when I was inducted with 20 great men. Believe me, after reading these citations, I have no earthly idea why they selected Donna Rowe from Marietta, Georgia, to be inducted, but it was indeed an honor. But this gives you an idea of the caliber of the men and women that served in my war, the wars before my war, and the wars after my war. This is Ray McGivern, Sergeant, United States Army, hoorah. Felton, Georgia. On 8 December 1968 in Vietnam, serving as a point element of a reconnaissance patrol, he conducted an effective, deadly, single-man assault against 6 heavily fortified enemy machine gun positions, causing the enemy to either flee or be killed by his effective rifle fire or hand grenades. At one time, he ran out of ammunition, but continued with a captured weapon. During his final bunker assault, he was mortally wounded, but still managed to continue firing and killing the enemy within. His combat awards are Combat Infantry Badge, Purple Heart, and the Medal of Honor. That's the kind of person I served with. And just so you'll know, the Vietnam War has 258 Medal of Honor recipients, the most of any war that our country has ever fought. The movie I'm in The Shadow of the Blade, and I believe they're going to be scrolling things up here, but don't worry about those. I'll tell you anyways. Right, Chuck? But the movie I'm in tells only one story, and I'm not going to waste your time telling my story. I'm traveling around today telling the stories of who these veterans were that stepped forward and served their country. They were the best that this country could put forward. My war, our men and women, were the children of the greatest generation. My mother and father had been through the Depression. My mother and father had been through World War II. And our mothers and fathers taught us 3 things: love of God, love of country, and love of family and friends. So when we went off to war, we took those values with us. When we got into the military, our military leaders indoctrinated us with duty, honor, country. And to this day, I carry those words. The men and women that served in my war came from many, many areas of the United States. My dear husband Al came from the banks of the Mississippi River. You can tell by my accent, I'm not Georgian, but I am Georgian by choice. I was born and raised in a small New England town that only had 750 people in it, but 12 of us stood forward and went off to the Vietnam War. I had men that served with me from the mountains of Utah, the native lands of New Mexico, the big cities of Chicago and Detroit. But we all came with the same values. We all came with the same dedication to God, our country, our family, and our friends. You've got to understand in war, your platoon leader becomes your mother. Your captain becomes your father. And the man and woman to the right or left of you and behind you are your brothers and sisters. When you see them wounded or hurt, you are doubly hurt because they are part of your family. We who have served in uniform always think of each other as family. I never enter a room with a veteran that doesn't come up to me and say, "Welcome home." I love my fellow veterans, but I need to talk to you about all the veterans of this country, from Bunker Hill to Baghdad and back. We went off to war and rode into the jaws of hell from Bunker Hill to Baghdad, and now we are sitting here watching the war in Ukraine, and we have men and women on the line over there protecting the NATO nations. Don't think that this isn't happening. It is. Some of you have friends that are away today because of that. But I do want to say also, I have been a military wife. I got out of uniform and my husband stayed almost 31 years. So I understand the sacrifices of you, the family member, the wife, the daughter, the son, that went a year or more without seeing your spouse, your father, your brother, or your sister. The families back home were the things we were fighting for. And I want you to understand that. In World War II, from the beaches of Normandy to the jungles of Bataan, over 400,000 Americans gave their lives for thousands of people to live free. And there were thousands more that served and came home. As you just heard at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, where the Marines held the line against the enemy of the North Vietnamese and the Chinese. And in that midst of the Marines was General Raymond Davis, a brave Georgian, 5'4" of him, he was as big as me, led his platoon behind enemy lines to get another platoon of Marines from behind the enemy. And you have to understand, this was the frozen tundra of Korea. This was not the heat and humidity of Vietnam. He led them out. And for that activity and his courageous activity, General Raymond Davis, a Georgian, received the Medal of Honor. Then we fought on in my war, the Vietnam War, where we lost over 58,200 names are engraved on the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. It took us almost 20 years to get the monument to women next to that wall, because originally the Park Service didn't think that was important. But for the 265,000 women that served during the Vietnam War, 11,000 of us that literally had boots on the ground, and 99% of that were Army nurses. We had 8 Army nurses engraved on that wall, and we wanted the nation to know that the women also served. Then we went on, Somalia, Nicaragua, Desert Storm, and just most recently, in the mountains and the dusty cities of Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq. These men and women that went off to that war were fighting terrorists that had lodged upon our country the most horrible attack on 9/11. Hundreds stood forward when we were attacked. And they went. Multiple tours, multiple times away from family, multiple times of no Thanksgiving, multiple times of no Christmas. The sacrifice of war is hard. But war is what keeps you free. Freedom is not free, and the sacrifices of war are sometimes needed. Today, I'm very proud of you for taking the time to remember, and for you adults in the audience, I thank you for teaching your children and your grandchildren the sacrifice every veteran made for them to sit here and be free. Not to be afraid to go out these doors and get on a school bus, because you won't be blown up. Not to be afraid to go to Wendy's or McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, because you won't be shot. Not to be afraid to get on an airplane, so you won't be hijacked. That is paid for by the veterans sitting here in this room. Your freedom was earned by every veteran in this room, and we gave it to you freely. I want you to remember, who are you remembering today? My husband, as I said, served 31 years. I lost him 7 years ago because of exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. He suffered for 7 years with Lou Gehrig's disease. I lost my best man for the same reason. He died of Parkinson's Agent Orange exposure. I can tell you, I remember every black body bag. I remember every injury that I helped care for. I want you to remember. Who are you remembering? Your brother, your father, your grandfather, your sister, your daughter, your uncle, or someone you don't even know that you just saw their pictures up behind me. I want you to remember. I want you to take this as serious as I can tell you. I urge you to read everything you can read about military history. And I want you to go to Veterans Day parades. I want you to celebrate Memorial Day. I want you to celebrate the 4th of July. I want you to celebrate your freedom. We all lead very busy lives. We all rush through our lives with those little things held in our hands that we're constantly texting and fiddling around with. But you here today have taken the time to stop and pause and look around you and teach these children the value of their freedom. And the value is sitting here on the floor, some of them in uniform, some of them not in uniform. We owe them all a debt of gratitude. Above all, I want to thank the school and the principal for having such exceptional children and probably truly exceptional parents. Because behind every great child, there is a great parent. Believe me, I know. But before I end, I want to ask Amy to come up here. Amy, you escorted me. Come here. Yeah. No. The one that escorted me down here. I usually don't do this, but today I believe you represent all these children. And because of that, I very rarely do this. But I want to give you the Vietnam Veterans coin. And on it, it says, "Freedom is not free." And on the other side, it has the eagle with the Vietnam ribbon, which is what I'm wearing. And it says, Chapter 1 of the Georgia Vietnam Veterans Alliance. I want you to keep this. I want you to go forward. I want you to serve your country. And I want you to do great things. And I wish that for all of you. There you go, Amy. I just want to end by telling you that the baby we did save in Vietnam, her name is Kathleen Epps. She is married to a great Irishman, so for an Irish girl from Boston, Massachusetts, I was thrilled to know she married an Irishman. She was adopted by a Navy nurse and brought home to the United States. She has 4 beautiful children. And because of the Vietnam vets, we weren't baby killers. We weren't worse than Gunga Din. And my story proves it. Thank you for having me here today. God bless you, and God bless America.
Please welcome the members of the famous E.T. Booth Teacher Quartet, Miss Amy Garner, Miss Mallory Tafoya, Mr. Jason Yelton, and Dr. Lawrence Gruzecki will be performing the Armed Forces Medley. Miss Martha Kenyon will accompany the quartet on the piano. Citizenship does not come without responsibility. The high calling does not mean we are free to neglect the important role we must play in the preservation of our nation's liberty. The freedoms we enjoy today did not come without a price. There were some who gave their fortunes and lands, and some who dedicated their lives to public service. There were far too many who made the supreme sacrifice for their country. The legacy of those who are willing to preserve, protect, and defend our liberty lives on in those who serve our nation today in the many branches of the military. The debt we owe them can never be adequately paid and our gratitude never fully expressed, but it is fitting that we acknowledge our appreciation and pay tribute to the men and women of the armed forces of the United States of America.
Shout, counter marching all about, and those caissons go rolling along. Boys, high army, let's hear artillery. Come the numbers on its 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And wherever you go, you will always know that those caissons go rolling along.
welcome back the principal of our school, Mr. Todd Chirac.
Well, thank you again for joining us today to celebrate our veterans. I would like to take just a moment to recognize some of the groups and individuals who worked diligently to prepare for this event. First and foremost, to our students who have shared their amazing talent with us today. Miss Rowe for being our guest speaker. Ms. Tafoya and Mr. Johnson, who worked with our band and chorus so the students can learn the music you heard today. Our faculty ensemble, who shared their talent with us. Ms. Jones and our art students for creating the mementos that our guests received. Ms. Denica and our Falcon TV crew for their visuals and for our live streaming of our ceremony for all to enjoy. Our National Junior Honor Society students and sponsors who prepared students to serve as liaisons today. Our fabulous PTSA for their help in setting up and registering guests and always being there to meet the needs of our school. And finally, to Dr. Gruzecki, Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Armbruster, who are the driving force behind our Veterans Day event, making sure every detail is taken care of and to make our ceremony successful. Also in closing, I'd just like to say, wow, it's an honor to serve as the principal of such amazing talent you saw here today. These students are amazing. I hope you really enjoyed the presentation. Veterans, I do hear there is some food left upstairs if you choose to partake. Got plenty of that left. But I thank you for spending this special time in honor of our veterans. All you drive safe going home.